Look, I'm aware that it doesn't sound like I did all that much, but trust me, damn, this was a sacrifice for you guys. I wish I was joking when I said it literally took me 3 days to watch this whole thing, because I couldn't stomach it for more than like half an hour at a time. Genuinely, honest to God, it's the worst film that I've ever watched. I'm genuinely scarred.
You just have to say that you're fine.
If you want to know what the movie is like without having to like watch the actual whole thing, just go and watch the intro. The first like minute and a half will tell you everything you need to know about the movie. I knew what I was in for when literally the very first thing you see in the movie is a butt. It's just like a close-up of a woman's butt as she walks through a party. We kind of follow her in this like tracking shot through the party where all this kind of stuff is happening, and boy, all of it is definitely something. All of these are played off as jokes, but they are icky, because the next thing that happens is there's this woman that's like sitting there texting, maybe a little bit tipsy, a little bit drunk, and these two dudes just like pick her up, run into the bedroom with her, and close the door as though they're gonna take advantage of her, and I guess I meant to laugh at that. It just kind of kept going in that vein, because then it pans to this dude who's getting a lap dance by a black woman, and he's posting something on social media that says, "Loving the dark meat this Thanksgiving." Ugh. Then we see two dudes kissing, and I was like, oh wow, that's actually kind of cool. We get to see some like gay representation. And then one of the dudes makes a post as well, being like, oh, I'm having so much fun at this party, but I'm missing my girlfriend. Because I'm like, yeah, we can't have like a non-problematic gay interaction, right? And then this girl starts dancing, and everyone's like, ah, she's so stupid and cringy. Because she's meant to be like ugly, because she's like overweight. But I look at her and I'm like, she's cute. What are you guys talking about? So they're making fun of her, but also I'm like, damn, her energy is just amazing. I've been to a lot of parties, and honestly, it doesn't matter what you look like, but if you are like blasting out on the dance floor, having a great time and radiating fun energy, people don't care. They're gonna want to dance with you. All that stuff I just described, 90 seconds, a minute and a half. And I was like, all right, maybe it's just a really intense minute and a half, but then 9 seconds later at a minute 39, the girl that's dancing and like having a great time vomits on this other character, and there's no point to it. It literally just comes out of nowhere. The note that I put down while I watched it was, I can hear Shane just begging me to laugh, which segues us perfectly to the movie just constantly like overkills jokes. The thing is, there's actually some decent lines throughout the movie. Some of them got some genuine chuckles from me, but they just constantly beat them to death. It's as though they don't trust the audience is going to be able to get it, so they have to like pick up a bag that contains the punchline and be like, a great example of a line that actually made me laugh was that Tori, who's one of the main characters, was talking to her family, and the dad's all like, oh, you can tell us about the boys you've met, or girls, we don't judge, just don't go into details because it gives your mother nightmares. And it made me do one of those laughs that's like blowing air at your nose, like, and then like the pacing of everything just had to be ruined because they cut to the mother who's like twitching and being all weird and going like, nightmares, nightmares, nightmares. Just like let it land, it's fine. You don't have to have the punchline multiple times. I think there's a lot of people, comedians, filmmakers that need to hear that like just gross stuff by itself isn't inherently funny. There's this bit where Tori's like, aha, my family's so horrible. And then this homeless dude talks to her and is like, this is why I'm glad my family's dead. And that again, I was like, that's kind of a funny line. And then to be like, this is how horrible my life is and I'm thankful I'm not you. He just like picks up a cup and then just like eats his own poop. Apparently that's meant to be like funny, I guess. It's another one of those situations where I could just hear Shane, it's funny because it's gross, please laugh. Not letting anything land just shows there's like no faith in the writing or the acting. And with that homeless guy, they actually used that same joke 3 times. He ate his poop and then he ate it again. And then later he's in the bathroom and guess what he's doing? No, he's drinking his pee. Because that's different, you see, because this one's a liquid. It's like I meant to laugh at that 3 times in a row. I don't really know. I don't want to get too controversial here, but Shane's acting is, how would I say? Awful. He kills the comedic timing of pretty much every scene he's in. Again, there was a solid line where his ex-girlfriend was like about to perform certain acts on him, and she reaches up at the last second and is like, here, hold my Invisalign. But then Shane's constant response to all of that, his like weird faces, they're just like horrible. They kill everything. A short while later, she like climbs over the bathroom stall wall, and it's like this weird, like kind of funny scene where suddenly she's just like yeeting herself over a wall. And I'm like, okay, that came out of nowhere, but lol. Then Shane's character has to ruin it by being like, what are you, Spider-Man? They randomly break up during this whole thing, and then she has to come back and like awkwardly ask for her Invisalign. I'd completely forgotten about that, and I was like, oh, that's kind of funny callback. And then she like smiles, and there's this giant like ding as she smiles. It's awful. This whole thing is literally like an hour and a half long Shane Dawson YouTube skit. It's not a movie.
Bye, grown stupid bitch! Kidding, not really.
Please laugh! That clip reminded me that Shane Dawson, who, remember, directed this, also like helped write this for a competition, stars as a character and has at least 2 other characters in the movie. One thing that makes the whole thing feel a little like kitschy and like a YouTube skit is that there's constant music, like nothing is ever allowed to land, there's no real like pacing to it, there's no sense of drama from the music, or even sense of comedy. It was as though they were like, oh, we can't have any scenes that have no music, there has to be constant music because that is what keeps people engaged, right? It's just too much, and like the thing about music and soundtracks is they're not meant to be like noticed, but with this, man, you definitely notice the music. It's just there all the time, and like weird sound effects to be like, that's the punchline, laugh. There's something that I feel is meant to be played off as funny, but I don't quite understand it, and that's that like Shane constantly talks with his mouth full throughout this movie. My favorite instance of this was literally like 7.5 minutes into the movie. There's a solid 40 seconds where Shane just keeps pizza in his mouth in order to keep talking with his mouth full. Like in the middle of the conversation, he's not chewing or swallowing it, he's just holding it in his mouth. Not as though he's constantly speaking, like he'll speak with his mouth full, then another character will speak for like 10 seconds, but he's still just holding the pizza in his mouth so that when it cuts to him again, he can speak with his mouth full. It's so weirdly forced. There's a solid like maybe 20 something references to poop in this movie. A lot of it isn't even with any real setup or any point. It's literally just like poop, lol. It's funny because it's gross. And comedically, like, characters don't really react to anything. This character is introduced for literally one scene, who is an auntie. She has this little bit where she's like set up to be insane, and she literally says to herself, as though she's talking to voices, saying, I can't kill them, they're family. And Tori and Scott like don't really react. They just look at each other like, oh no, she's gonna kill us. It's literally the face of if someone said to you, I'm sorry, we're all out of Coke, is Pepsi okay? That said, controversial opinion, I like Pepsi more. Don't at me. Or maybe do, I don't really care. There's so much that's meant to be edgy that just comes across as forced and dumb and out of nowhere. There's a bit about like 25 minutes into the movie where they're dancing, and mind you, at this point there's been like a solid 3 to 4 minutes of screen time that's just been dancing, and the dad just randomly says, this is how I always pictured black people would dance. For all you comedy writers out there, just remember, if you put the words black people in your punchline, no matter what it is, no matter if there's even been any setup to it, it's instantly hilarious.
Why were you into poop stuff when we were together?
It's just a lot. Let's move on to talk about why a lot of people were offended by the movie. This movie has like no problem using disabled people as a punchline, using people of color as a punchline. I feel like they needed someone on set to say, hey guys, just so you know, dropping a slur, that's not a punchline. There are several times in the movie where the punchline is literally just the R slur. They use that slur, I think I counted 7 times throughout the movie. There's a character who's a blind woman and she is constantly used for cheap gags. There's casual references to date rape where a character complains that they've only been roofied once at the party, because if there's one thing that women love, it's date rape. There's sexual assault that's used as a punchline. Many rape jokes throughout the movie. There's a small sequence that actually had like some semblance of comedic setup where Tori has like stuffed a watermelon under her shirt at the supermarket and they're going through the checkout and they're buying condoms. So obviously she looks pregnant and she's buying condoms. And the checkout lady is like, well, better late than never, right? And I was like, lol, sounds like something I'd say. And Tori's response is literally just like, well, it's hard to prepare for when it's rape. And when I saw that, I literally paused it and was just like, what? Why? What? Like, what? Why would you say that? Like, how is that a punchline? I'm so edgy. Please laugh! There's also, like, horrendous racial representation in this movie. I'm pretty sure the only black character that actually has lines is the homeless guy that ate his own poop. And then later he, like, comes back to, like, rub his genitals all over the glass of some public transport. There is a character who appears to be, like, painted as South Asian, but he's, like, this crazy party animal with extremely strict parents who literally has a whiteboard with a running total of how many people have been raped at his party. Great representation! There's also this Latina character who is in one scene, and her whole thing is to speak in a very stereotypical accent and complain that the other characters are taking too long to get a piercing because her baby is next. That's it. This movie is also like super hypocritical when it comes to that problematic stuff.
Mental illness
is nothing to laugh at.
Totes retard.
Retarded Leonardo DiCaprio. Retarded?
Really retarded.
The last thing I'll say when it comes to it being problematic is not the last thing that is problematic. There's just a lot more I haven't even touched on. But there's also this bit where Shane is playing like a bus driver, different character to the other two characters he's played so far, and has this really weird, extremely sexually aggressive rant towards two underage kids. And honestly, like, I could not help but be like, man, if this ain't relevant right now.
Oh, I'll whip your hair back and forth.
So this character, Joel, starts the movie talking to pretty much anyone who will listen about how much he wants to have sex with this other character called Janie. I will say he's really weird and creepy about it, and I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable, but at least we know his motivation, which is more than I can say for literally any other character in this entire movie. With the plots, like, the weirdest thing about it is that literally pretty much nothing really happens. There's no real development in any of the plots. In my first attempt to watch, I got to around the 30-minute mark, and I was very frustrated because I was like, 30 minutes and nothing's happened. The only real development was that Joel had like cornered Janie in the bathroom after accidentally spilling liquid on her, using this as an excuse to like touch her all over while drying her. Hilarious. Turns out she's really stressed because she thinks she's gonna fail this exam. But what do you know, when Joel did the test, he passed it easily, so he's like, oh my gosh, I'll tutor you. And Janie was like, oh my gosh, creepy guy who has talked to anyone who will listen about how much he wants to bang me and has now cornered me in the bathroom under the pretense of drying me in order to touch me all over and tell me that he'll tutor me. Oh, sure, you can tutor me for this test. So later he picks her up to tutor her. Turns out, what do you know, he's hired like a party bus to impress her and turns it into this date. Again, against her will. She doesn't want to date. She's explicitly said this to him multiple times. But this charming, creepy guy has gone and stalked her social medias to find out all the stuff she likes, doesn't like, and that she's talked to her friends about. And this is like seemingly played off as charming. Like, can you imagine going on a date and asking someone like, oh my gosh, how'd you know I like this thing? How'd you know I like that thing? And them just being like, I found it on your social media. Isn't that charming? Love me. As a cherry on top to this, it turns out that the reason he'd passed the test so easily was that he already had the test in advance, and he plays this whole pity card of like, oh, I didn't give you the test or tell you about this because once I did, you wouldn't want to hang out with me anymore. And she's like, oh, you're so silly, of course I want to hang out with you. So they go to this dinner and she finds out that, hey, he stalked her to get all this information. And finally there's a little bit of tension into the story. At this point, literally like an hour into the movie is when this surfaces. The whole movie is an hour and a half, so they've got 30 minutes to resolve this plot line. She finds out that he lied about all this, lied about the test, lied about the interest, hangs out with her under false pretenses to tutor her when he didn't have any intention of doing so, and she like goes off at him about being crazy. And you know how they resolve it? You know how it gets fixed? She's just like, oh, you silly boy. Somehow then he convinces her to go to like one last place where he's gotten this music duo to perform one of her favorite songs for a show that she loves. Again, finding this information by having stalked her, and then they dance and it's intimate and they kiss. For some reason, I have no clue why she would be interested in him. She said explicitly from the start she wasn't interested in him. She's been constantly creeped out along the way. And then she's like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'll make out with you. Why not? Sounds fun. Let's do it. She seemingly realizes, what am I doing? And then runs out after kissing him. I was genuinely surprised that they didn't actually end up together. They just ended up being platonic friends. That, though, I feel is weird in and of itself. I don't feel like there was anything in their plotline that warranted them becoming friends. But pretty much the reason they do is because he accidentally let slip that he's a virgin, and she's like, oh, you poor little virgin, it explains why you're acting like such a creepy stalker. Because all virgins are clearly desperate for sex and don't know how to control themselves and act like reasonable people. Then their whole plot interaction becomes that she wants to like get him laid, and there's some great slut shaming because she's like, oh, I know some friends that'll definitely have sex with you, and paints them in a really negative light for that. And then this whole thing is capped off by Joel sleeping with like 3 women at the same time, one of which is played by Shane because, I don't know, of course it is. Why not? I think that sums up Joel and Janie's whole plot, and I think the attitude of the direction and writing for this is just, sure, why not? Everyone in this movie is so annoyingly awful, including Tori and Scott, who have this like meet cute where she accidentally like runs into him with a car, and that's just swept under the rug. She hits him with her car and then is like, ugh, fine, I guess I'll give you a lift. Girl, you just hit him with your car. The least you could do is give him a lift to where he needs to go. We're told really early on that Tori had a horrible nickname in school, which was Tori the Hoary. And not long after Tori and Scott meet, it's revealed that Scott actually came up with the nickname. I say revealed, that's very, very generous. It's literally just Scott saying it and Tori going like, yeah, I know. Just remember that interaction because it is important. She just drives him off to a party like, internal bleeding be damned. They're sat there before he gets out of the car and Tori starts ranting about how bad Scott is. And literally in my notes, I wrote, watching her rant about how terrible Scott is, he's definitely gonna kiss her in the movie, he's gonna play this off as charming 100%, I have zero doubt. And they do, and I wrote another point just saying, I was right, lol. Then like Scott comes to her house for Thanksgiving and Tori's like, please go, I don't want you to be around my family. And Scott's like, well, joke's on you because I'm going to anyway, and comes in. And again, this is meant to be charming, I guess. Where I'm describing right now is about the half an hour point as well. And again, what has happened? What's happened here? She got puked on, they met, and they just randomly had sex. And at this point, like a solid 2 to 3 minutes has just been characters dancing. At the dinner, it's really tense because Tori wants him to leave, Scott wants to stay. So again, he's like clearly in the wrong. If she doesn't want him there, he should just go. They're playing this dancing game and they make a bet over whether he should leave. If she wins, he leaves. If he wins, he stays. She ends up winning and then he has this little monologue of being like, oh, I guess I'll just go be lonely then. The dude that just barged his way into a family dinner. No, bro, I feel no guilt. Get out of the house. Later, they just run into each other in the mall completely by accident. That's pretty much what this plot is, just a series of accidents where nothing of importance really happens. The characters have no drive, no motivation. It's literally just a story of these two people randomly falling for each other by accidentally running into each other. So he shows her these pictures of like people getting tased during black market sales. Black market sales is not what I meant Black Friday. Although screw it, they should have made it black market sales. That would have been far more interesting than anything in this movie. But he's taking photos of people in pain and him and Tori are like, ha 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 ha, people getting hurt, hilarious. And she scrolls across through these photos and finds a photo he's taken of an elderly couple kissing. And that's it for her, that's enough to be like, this guy is a good guy. He appreciates an elderly couple kissing. That's it, that's all I need, good guy, let's date. And tells him that they're gonna hang out later. So while hanging out, they start what's called a shit list. A way of Tori being like, hey, loosen up, Scott, you're too regimented. Which is something that's said, but like, not shown at all. So far, Scott's character has been really aloof. He's just like spent his time wandering around the mall, taking photos of people and talking with his mouth full. Nothing that shows he has some sort of strict schedule. He's just kind of doing whatever he wants whenever he wants. So they just kind of do like all this random stuff that's meant to be endearing, but really it's just them disrupting the lives of other people. It's just a prank, bro. She takes him to like her private hangout spot. It's really intimate and having this moment when they're like, oh my gosh, they're falling in love with each other. Guys, you've been hanging out for 2 days. What is this? Actually, like a day and a half. And you spent the first day of it trying to kick him out of your house. How is there any chemistry here? Scott returns the favor and takes Tori to like his private hangout spot. And this honestly is like what really sent me because he takes her to a football stadium. We're introduced to this scene by him like covering her eyes and walking her down a hallway out onto the field. And she's like, oh my gosh, how did you take me to this football stadium? That's crazy. And he's all like, well, I know the security guard from my photography class, so he did me a favor. And I'm just here like, how did he make that a surprise? Yeah, he had her eyes covered while walking onto the actual field, but they still have to walk into the venue through the car park, and not to mention like drive in the general vicinity of the stadium and then go to the stadium. On the way driving to the stadium, did he just go, yo, close your eyes now, don't ask questions, just keep them closed, and then make her keep them closed for what, like half an hour? Also somehow have an interaction with the security guard where they let them into the field, all without her knowing anything that's going on and still being like, oh, the football stadium. After this, they go to the car, have sex, and they randomly have a fight where all of their character development, and I use that term lightly, goes out of the window, and they both act completely out of whatever character they have. She says that like, hey, this wasn't meant to be something permanent, and she was teaching him how to be challenged so he could go back, go to college, kick ass, and not just go back to whatever is easy for him. And his response is like, come on, you weren't that easy. Man, what? Like, am I meant to root for you? Am I meant to like you? You're an awful human being. It's just such a contrived fight, and you know they're gonna end up together. Okay, now at this point, remember how I told you to remember the whole Tori the Hoary thing? Guess what happens? Nothing. No need to remember it, has zero bearing on the plot at all, other than some characters calling her the name a few times. That's all. One main character came up with this nickname for another main character, and nothing comes of it. They fight, Scott goes to this party, meets up with his ex-girlfriend, who's like, yo, let's have sex, I want it, takes him upstairs, and literally rapes him. And this is played off as a joke. Isn't it funny that she's like having sex with him against his will? So hilarious. And that's when the one South Asian character goes to the whiteboard and's like, there has been one rape at this party. Tori comes in and sees this happening and is like outraged that Scott would do this. And he's like, no, it's not what it looks like. She actually raped me. And her response is,
Oh my god, she weighs 90 pounds!
ooh, boy. Better strap on tight, because we got some victim blaming. Scott runs into his sister, who is Janie from the other plot line, and she raises a bunch of valid points about how awful Scott is to people. She's like super angry, and she goes to storm out. And you know how this is resolved? Literally, Scott is like, no, I'm gonna hug you and not let you run out. And she's like, I don't want to be hugged, please get off me. And he's like, no, I'm gonna hug you. And she's like, no, really, I don't want to. And he's like, no, I'm gonna hug you. And then she goes, oh, okay, I guess I'll hug you. Oh, big bro, everything's fine. Forget about all those things I said about how inconsiderate and awful and terrible you are. You know, the things I said literally 30 seconds ago. None of that matters because I got a hug from you. And that, as we know, fixes everything. So then he's like, oh, I know how to get her back. I'm gonna shave my head because this is one of the things that was on the shit list that I refused to do. And so he does, and that like works. Oh my god, I can't believe you do this for me. This is a symbol of how much you've changed as a person. Spoiler, he hasn't changed like at all. It's been 2 days. And Shane's acting in this emotional climax is just awful.
Yesterday was the best day of my life.
And they cry and hug and laugh and cry and kiss. And he didn't even go bald. He's still got hair, it looks fine. He's even got like sideburns. And this movie joins the long list of movies that I hate for just ending their plot with a dance party. Hey, don't know how to sum up all your plot points neatly? Make them dance! And everyone will forget there was ever even a plot. I was annoyed enough about that, but then it actually didn't quite end there. It kind of faded to black. Well, the movie's over. Nope, it just starts with like a 1-minute monologue where Tori just has this whole thing about like living in the moment and staying off social media. And I'm just like, that came out of left field. Like nothing about any of the plot or anything thematically had anything to do with staying off social media. They just kind of like threw that in there, which is also like really rich coming from Shane Dawson. I think it's really telling that my favorite part of the movie was just the establishing shot of the Duquesne incline lift. And that was just because I saw it and I was like, oh, I've been there. Good memories with my brother. Anyway, I guess this was somewhat therapeutic, getting all of this off my chest. But I guess I did it to myself. The only reason I watched it was for this video. And like, honestly, I regret it. I don't think it was like worth it at all. But you know, I did it, so you didn't have to. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to click that like button. And as always, have an awesome time until I see you next. See ya.